Well, Grant, I picked the Nuggets to beat the Clippers in 5 games. Denver made me look like a fool, but I had built up goodwill. I picked them to win the title when no one else did, and they went ahead and won it in 2023. I also picked them in 2024. That didn't work out so well for your guy here. They now face the Oklahoma City Thunder. Uh, let's go through as our narratives, our tactical questions. Let's begin there before we get to predictions and X factors. So tactically, what are you looking at with this series?
A couple things for the Thunder. I wonder, like they've gone with the two big looks. I think that's really interesting. It's just like you almost have to have Hartenstein out there just for the size against Jokic. But I do wonder how much we'll see Chet at center looks that really strain Denver's defense and force Jokic to either just like pretend to guard a perimeter player or actually guard a perimeter player, depending on who the Thunder put out there, and have like major help responsibilities too. If you can get away with Chet guarding Jokic for long stretches, I think that really, really benefits the Thunder. Not that they're going to need a lot of benefits probably, but that's something I'm interested to see if they try, they being OKC, just to see like, do you, or do you, if that doesn't work, do you then, as the Thunder, have to turn to some more like gimmicky stuff against Jokic when Hartenstein's not on the floor?
So I kind of have the same question with just like how much of the dual big stuff are we going to see from Oklahoma City and the Thunder? Again, regular season, it's only a 27-minute sample size, 11.5 net rating with Chet and Hartenstein against the Nuggets when at least two of Jokic, Russ, and Aaron Gordon are on the floor. And I'm just curious with depending on how much Denver utilizes Russ, do you think that makes it will that convince the Thunder to maybe sometimes want to go to more of the dual big looks because that's someone in theory, okay,
Yeah.
if you have Chet or excuse me, Hartenstein on Jokic, you can put Chet on Russell Westbrook and kind of just float around out there. Like that's I'm curious to see if they would go with that or if they view those looks, especially if Aaron Gordon isn't on the court, is that their opportunity to say, no, hey, like let's have our one big setup going right now.
I mean, and this wasn't my tactical pick for Denver, but I think we got to talk about it now. Is this a Russell Westbrook series at all? Like, can't like if you can guard Russ with Chet, which turns Chet into just a rover, like good luck. Like that's just, I mean, and like the fact is Denver sort of has to play Russ, and that's a huge problem because you're just the giveth and taketh away of it all. Like, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that one, but I think that has to be addressed. I hope that wasn't your specific one.
Well, also, the follow up one on this is then for Denver, Christian Brown on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like that's just done. Like lock in on that for the most part. What is the best option to go against J-Dub? And I watched back some stuff, and we saw MPJ, we saw Russ, we saw Peyton Watson, of course. I don't like. I think when you're looking at, okay, what MPJ brings you offensively that you want him on the floor, so long as the fact that he's playing right now, basically with one arm is incredible.
Yeah.
And so do you want him to be you probably don't want him in situations where he also you need him for the 3-point, the scoring, and then he's going to find some time on J-Dub. And now I'm thinking about it, just does this feel like a Russ is going to have to be on J-Dub then? We saw some of it during the regular season, and the thinking here would be, as untrustworthy as Russell Westbrook is on the offensive end, it feels like Peyton Watson is more of a wild card there. So unless you're going to and you're not going to want Aaron Gordon doing any of this, maybe some Jamal Murray, but like this is, I'm going through the list. I don't know who the ideal, and it's not all about the single matchups. I get it, but it's just Christian Brown locked in on Shai, and then it's okay. Well, like, what are you doing with J-Dub?
So mine's related. Mine was just kind of like, is Aaron Gordon going to spend more time on J-Dub or Chet? Because like you definitely don't want, like, I don't think you want MPJ or Murray on like either of those guys. As like to the extent you can limit that, I don't think it's possible to really limit that. You're going to have exposure with one of them defensively. So do you decide as the Nuggets, all right, we just have to have Gordon on J-Dub because then it's going to force a third person to do more of the offensive initiating, assuming Brown can hang with SGA a little bit. And maybe that's how Denver like makes the Thunder offense like gum up a little bit, is if you just use your only other really good defensive player on J-Dub. But like then it's so you're guarding Chet with who? Like, is that MPJ? I don't love that. Do you try Russ out there? Do you use Murray on Chet somehow? Like just invite, duck-ins and that kind of thing. it's just Denver just doesn't have the fact that you're bringing up Russ as like maybe you're gonna have to use him defensively. Like that's a problem.
Yeah, even with they showed another level defensively against the Clippers for sure. I even thought, I mean, this is more so Thunder related though. You were mentioning if you can have Chet roam. We saw Harden on Jokic in that Clipper series. We've seen J-Dub defend centers in the past. Is that like a misallocation of resources? If you're like, okay, when you want to go one big and Jokic is on the floor, it's like we're gonna put J-Dub on Jokic and then Chet, like he can be on Aaron Gordon, or maybe it's Russ.
That's a great wrinkle. That's a fun, like, because yeah, I mean, you could if you get it, who better than OKC to just have a shooting guard Jokic and figure it out, because they had to play that way for a month or whatever it was. I mean, yeah, that's another. God, the Thunder have so many. This is the through line of this series for me is like the Thunder have so many options that like they can approach this so many different ways tactically, and I don't feel like Denver has nearly that luxury. Denver can do like two different things. And it's like we're not even sure about one of them.
Who is your what are you watching narratively from this series? What's the biggest storyline?
For the Thunder side of it, this is going to be the case for a lot of the high seeds that have advanced, but it's like, can you take down the best offensive player in the league in Jokic and sort of like add a little tick mark, next on the resume of like historic season, one of the best defenses ever, like all these wins, knocked Jokic out without much trouble. Like then you're starting to build a case as, we're going to have to talk about the Thunder if they go all the way and, then beat Boston or Cleveland or whatever in the finals, as like, yeah, this team actually was just one of the best teams we've seen in however many years, like just knocking Jokic out would be a huge point of validation.
It's also just, did the Isaiah Hartenstein acquisition end up like how
much?
This is a series where for that, the thing that I think people will be conditioned to look at, and it's not when Shea's off the floor, it's just the secondary offense, even if he's on the floor. I don't know, like this just doesn't feel the series where I would glean enough from it, because what can the Nuggets do that's really going to throw Shea Gilgeous-Alexander? I think the Memphis probably like might have thrown more things at him than we'll see Denver do, where it feels like they're going to be very locked in on one or two guys. Will have to be the focus there. So, but that is something to watch. Like J-Dub doing a lot better at creating for himself, getting into the lane. Like when he gets in the lane, some of the change of pace and direction stuff there, that matters. But it's just like this. Not the stakes don't feel low for the Thunder. If they lost this series, I think they would have to look inward a lot. It feels more so. I look at kind of just okay. Like did they make the moves that like got them past a team that was bigger and could play physical? Like this is the team you did that. Like even more so than a Memphis. It's the Denver. It's the Minnesotas.
That's a great point. Like the Thunder had to do what they did to play in series like this against, to the extent there are players like Jokic, they went out and made the effort to like equip themselves to handle that kind of thing. So it will be a referendum on those moves. I think for Denver, like this is the challenge of like the Thunder might just not be a fair measuring stick because they might be historically great. But if you go out quickly, or it's pretty clear that you just like this Denver roster, even with Jokic, and even if Murray does play well, like just doesn't have the options or the answers to beat a team like this, then it's like, well, what changes can we realistically make? In addition to figuring out who's going to be our head coach next year and who's going to make the front office decisions. Like, do you start thinking about Gordon or MPJ trades or whatever? Like, but you have to view all that through the lens of like, well, like who could have beaten the Thunder? And the answer might just be nobody. So like the push and pull of that is going to be interesting for me.
I do think so. I look at it the same way, but I'm also looking at it from the perspective of, all right, well, how valuable are Peyton Watson and Christian Brown really? And I focus more so, defensively, sure, you might learn stuff about them, but on the offensive end, when you're looking at guys that are coming up on extension eligibility, like Christian Brown shooting under 20% from three in the butt, not great, Bob.
Right.
And so how much do you pay him in an extension? And is it time to consider, well, if you're moving one of the bigger contracts as standalone value, I don't know that it has a ton. But now if you say, all right, like we're willing to move one or both of these guys, like that changes a lot of your options. Not advocating for it necessarily, but I do think like this is kind of a series when you're looking at some of the stuff that the Thunder might pull defensively, or maybe even some of the lineups that they run out there, where this might teach us a lot about, well, how much should Denver value those two young guys specifically moving forward?
Yeah, good one.
What is your X factor for, let's go with OKC?
I mean, it's just that I think my whole lead up to this has been like, I don't know if there's a guy that's like make or break for them that I don't know what I'm getting. I guess as we've talked about it, I would lean towards Jalen Williams because one, he theoretically should be tested as an offensive creator. We've said plenty of times, as long as he's out there with one of the good bigs, the offense is fine. But I think that's going to be a pressure point. And then the potential to play like gimmicky defense with him guarding Jokic, I think is fascinating. So, and can he handle that? Is that a viable like 5-minute strategy per game for Denver for OKC? And if it's not, then you have to like kind of readjust who's going to be guarding Jokic. So I think it's him, but it's hard to find one for the Thunder. Who's yours?
I think I'm just going to go with Isaiah Hartenstein because it is hard to find one for the Thunder because he'll determine maybe, well, how many dual big minutes are we
Right.
getting? And then what does he just look like defending Nikola Jokic? Can he stay out of foul trouble? Because
Mhm.
you don't, even if he stays out of foul trouble, like Chet doesn't have the body type to where you want to see him play that matchup in high volume.
Right. Yeah, I think actually the odds are if Chet is the guy assigned to Jokic, it will just be as part of a gimmicky, like, fronting and doubling from behind kind of thing. Cause I mean, Jokic will just put him in the basket, right? Like that feels like the Thunder don't have to give like a soft target like that. And Chet's like someone who we both think might win Defensive Player of the Year at some point, but it's not because he like holds up in the post against 300 pounders.
Right. And we're just obligated. Aaron Wiggins is he's the forever
Always.
X factor.
Yeah.
Who's your X factor for Denver?
So I went MPJ because I think he's gonna, because of the way the Thunder play defense and because of how tiny the windows to score are, like he just has to be like a hot potato, like quick trigger. The second you're open, it's got to go up, and he's got to be like a major spacing threat that has to be guarded. Like, nobody gets the Steph Curry treatment, but like you have to face guard him, or you have to trail him everywhere. You can't help off of him. If he can be like that, and the injury makes it hard, he's just not someone that's going to create anything, I don't think, against any of the Thunder's defenders. So MPJ just has to be like, making 5, 6, 7 threes more than once and has to be a massive threat. And if he's not, I just don't know what Denver does for a reliable offense.
I think that's a good one, but for variety's sake, I'll just go with Peyton Watson. It's how he doesn't play a ton versus the Clippers. And in theory, that's a team that I felt like he maybe should have played more against.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like against the Thunder, who like they don't necessarily play ultra fast, but they can, and they're physical, and sometimes they're going to play small.
Yeah.
And if you mentioned MPJ and then the shoulder issue, like if he's not able to hold up defensively, do you want him on the court? And if he's not, well, then Peyton Watson's like a name, like if you're going to throw him in, or do you want Peyton Watson on the court to help insulate Michael Porter Jr. defensively? I'm curious to see what his usage looks like. That's why he's an X factor for me, because I honestly have no idea how much he's going to play against OKC.
Just another one real quick. This might just be tactical too, but like if Caruso can just blow up the Murray Jokic like handoff screen game, then it's like Denver might score 50 points a night. Like they're just like, if he can, because I don't know, I mean, Dort, you might even say Dort could do some of this too if he just refuses to be screened. Like if you short circuit any of the 2-man Murray Jokic stuff, I just don't know where the Jokic may just figure it out, but like that's like almost fatal, it seems like, for Denver.
What's your prediction?
So I think the last series I picked the Nuggets because of like Jokic, period. He'll figure, like I just said, he'll figure it out. I'm going to go Thunder I'll go Thunder in 6. I think the Thunder are overwhelming. I think their defense is so good. They can be so tactically diverse if they want to. And it's like, who are you picking on? There's half the time we're doing series previews, it's like, oh, what about this weak point? Like, okay, well, who's the Thunders? Who are you going at on the Thunder? I don't know.
I'm going to go Thunder in 5 because I think that there's a real chance. And this is not, I was probably too down on the Nuggets entering their Clipper series. And they did like Jamal Murray, the 40 burger, like coming up big. They're like, they did a bunch of different things. I think that we're going to look back, that there's a real chance. And I say this with all due respect to the Cavaliers and the Celtics. And I did say this about the Celtics at the end of last year. And we realized that we just overthought like this entire fucking exercise.
I've been having that thought too.
Haven't done it before.
Yep.
And this team is so good, so deep, so versatile. And in theory, they don't have like a weakness. Maybe it's the 3-point volume, but Chet, just gets them up. And then it used to be the secondary offense, and it's, well, you have Hartenstein and J-Dub and Chet, and now the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander list minutes, they don't need to, well, I guess against Memphis, they existed a lot, but that's a different reason why they existed a lot. And so I really just think that I'm tempted to go 6 like you did, just because I have all the respect in the world for Jokic and Murray, and like this team's like the Nuggets too. They've punched back when their back has been up against the wall here. I wrote them off leading into the Clippers series. I just, firing your coach that close to the end of the season and your lead front office executive, it just felt like that team would be in shambles. Nikola Jokic is the greatest basketball player alive. The Thunder just have, it's not that they just have more good basketball players, because I think that you could get, they just have more players and more optionality to the way that they're able to carry themselves. And I think that's going to be the ultimate difference here. And look, the things that I'll say during the non-Hartenstein minutes, the things that they might be able to do to Jokic defensively, we didn't really talk about that. They might be, the people that want Jokic to be bad on defense or say like, oh, like he can't do this. This is the team that I think could maybe exploit him a little bit and make it look more egregious than it actually is.
I think that there's a great possibility of that. I'm glad you're having that overthinking it thing with the Thunder, because even it was Memphis. So like, okay, what are we really going to learn? But it's like, you just stack that series up against the whole season and what we kind of maybe thought going into the year. And it's like, I have that exact feeling of like, I kind of think the Thunder have some like inevitable vibes about them,
they ranked 5th. This is per B-ball index in like the total amount of value lost to injury this season. And they just still ran the tables.
Right.
So it's just, there's just all these indicators that are pointing towards the Thunder championship favorites, and there's just no one's going to beat them. I think I like Boston or Cleveland would be a fun matchup, either one of the finals, but the Thunder are going to be, you couldn't talk to me about the other Western Conference semifinals. I'm going to pick the Thunder to make the finals if I had to do it right now. And I'm curious what a loss in the series would mean for especially if it happens in 4 or 5. And it's not like, I guess at the point differential is kind of like Knicks Pistons-y, and it's like, okay, when like, well, that series lasted longer, of course. So Thunder in 5 from me.